Hello, my Evanscapers. I'm not sure why I'm starting so happily because it's kind of a bit of a somber very post today. So as many of you might have already known, one of my favorite authors, Anne Rice, has died. Anne Rice is probably best known for Interview with the Vampire and The Vampire Lestat, but this is actually my favorite Anne Rice novel. It's called The Witching Hour. It's part one of a trilogy called The Mayfair Witches, The Mayfair Chronicles. Book one actually follows Rowan as she inherits the family curse, if you want to use that. Rowan is the 13th witch, and she's the most powerful of the witches, and would you know it? Interestingly enough, news of Rice's death came only days after it was announced that there would be a television adaptation of The Witching Hour, courtesy of AMC. I am excited but also wary of this. I love Anne Rice, I do, and I'm not sure they can do this series any kind of justice. I really don't know how it may work, but I am super excited. So according to page 6, by the way, there is going to be a Interview with the Vampire series starring Grey Worm. The actor Jacob, I can't recall his name, but Jacob something, he played Grey Worm in Game of Thrones. And it's going to be the same net worth. ABC is betting on horror queen Anne Rice. This was written a few days before her death. The famous former New Orleans author's Mayfair Witches series is getting adapted into a TV show for AMC. This is the same network as The Walking Dead. It marks the second Rice series heading to adaptation at the network, as Interview with the Vampire will also be hitting the small screen. Interesting. Read more. Ooh. So the Anne Rice universe is what they're calling it, and built around stories and characters that have captivated millions of fans around the world. Ooh. We are extremely fortunate to have such talented storytellers as Esta and Michelle guiding this adaptation, which will follow the first season of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire late next year. Casting for Mayfair Witches has not been announced. Interview with the Vampire famously cast Brad Pitt as Louis and Tom Cruise as the Vampire Lestat, which apparently Rice didn't approve of, but after Cruise met with her, she gave the approval. So this version will star Jacob Anderson, that's his name, aka Grey Worm from Game of Thrones, and he will play Louis, and Sam Reed will play Lestat. That's going to be interesting because Jacob Anderson is biracial black, so I'm interested. I'm normally not a fan of race bending characters. I'm not a fan of doing that, but I'm curious to see how they will handle the race of the race bending and how that will work in New Orleans of the past, being that he is not white. But my understanding is he will have a slightly different origin, because the original Louis was a slave owner. And I'm not going to get into that whole thing about, black people own slaves too, but my understanding is that he will have a slightly different backstory from Louis. But I'm not really all that interested in Interview with the Vampire, but I am very interested in The Witching Hour, because if you know me, you know I'm all about those witches. And The Witching Hour has been a favorite of mine for a long time. It's interesting because I normally stay away from books this thick, but it's so fascinating as it follows the genealogy of 13 generations of Mayfair witches, starting with the very first witch in Scotland. It's some interesting, fascinating stuff. So it's a generational saga, and I'm hoping there can be some justice to it. I wasn't a fan of the sequels, but I'm curious to see what they will do with this. So it's scheduled to air next year. Anyway, Anne Rice has been such a master. She's been such a brilliant author. Rest in peace and power. And it's kind of sad that she passed away recently and won't get to see these adaptations, but I'm sure I hope they do her great justice. Yeah. Anyway, let me know what you think about Anne Rice. If you're a fan of her work, there will be no slander of Anne Rice here in my forum.